A Walk in My Stilettos podcast is turning 2. Come sit with us for our 2-year anniversary celebration. It's a celebration event for women to be inspired and learn how to strengthen their resilience muscle, own their stories, and conquer their fears. Come join the Faith Walker community, a global community of women walking in a manner worthy of their calling as we celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the A Walk in My Stilettos podcast. We will close out the event with cultivating positive vibes through affirmations and a special performance by the one and only Julie Black. We will have a fireside chat with some of our most popular podcast guests. We've got Jamisa McIver Bennett, who is the young real estate investor, new multimillionaire. We've got Vivian Kay. She's the e-commerce brand boss. And we've got Kim Fitzpatrick. She's the business mentor and the founder of Legacy by Kim. We'll also have some other amazing past guests joining us as our resilience moderators. We've got women like Kim Mason, Emily Mills, JJ on the mic, that's Jillian Simmons, Coco Lorraine Vera, LaShonda Gary, Marina Simone, Faith Walker, and more. Your ticket entry comes with a complimentary copy of the Gratitude Journal. That is my gift to you. That is my thank you to you for celebrating this 2-year milestone with me. The Gratitude Journal helps you to practice healthier habits, build awareness, and strengthen your mental and emotional muscles. I am so excited and I cannot believe that 2 years has come already. So please join us. We have limited seats available and there's also a VIP ticket option to have a coaching session with myself, McKinney Smith. I can't wait to celebrate this milestone with you guys. And if you haven't done so already, please head over to Apple Podcasts and rate the show and leave us a review so that others can feel just as motivated to stay consistent with listening to the show like you have, and they can see what they've been missing. We love to know your feedback on the episodes. We love to know what resonated with you, how it touched you, how it connected with your life. I'd love to take a second to thank one of our listeners for leaving us such an amazing review. She says, "The show is simply amazing. McKinney, thank you for creating a platform for women to speak about their journey and empower others to seek success no matter what the challenges they've experienced. Your podcast is simply amazing and delivers such an important message that failure is just a part of the journey and success is the destination. Thank you for being an inspiration." And thank you for leaving us a review. So don't forget to join us October 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our 2-year anniversary celebration called Resilience is My Superpower. Look forward to seeing you there. Welcome to A Walk in My Stilettos, where our goal is to help you walk in your greatness. I'm your host, McKinney Smith. Hey, Faith Walkers. Thank you for joining us on the A Walk in My Stilettos podcast, where we have conversations with amazing women that are letting us step into their shoes. I help women to strengthen their resilience muscle, own their stories, and conquer their fears so they can reach their goals. I get inspired when I see another woman succeeding, but what interests me more is her backstory and her mindset on how she got there. So today's guest is about to bless us with her testimony, and since you're already here, you may as well subscribe. Today we have Andrea Jennings. She's a disability inclusion strategist, an actress, a model, commissioner, and founder of Shifting Creative Paradigms Entertainment and Productions, Leveling the Playing Field. It envisions a world where underrepresented individuals in media, such as people with disabilities, will be depicted as strong leaders. She believes that the design, fashion, arts, and entertainment fields are powerful arenas that can be used to influence social change by using multiple media platforms. Creating and producing inclusive and diverse content for television, film, theater, and music production is the vision and goal of her production company. Please welcome to the show, Andrea Jennings.
Wow, thank you so much for that incredible introduction, McKinney.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I just want to thank you. I'm so honored to be on your show. It's an honor and a privilege. So thank you for having me, first off.
No problem. It's an honor to have you. And, I always tell the women when they hear their own bio, they're like, wow, that sounds awesome. I'm like, wow, girl, that is you. That is all you. So
Right?
Own it, walk in it. I'm just grateful that you agreed to come on and to share your story and your gems with us today.
Yes, thank you. It's part of what I do,
Awesome.
And I love it.
So I love to start the show with an icebreaker question because I believe that as women, we have all these different titles that we go by, but a title that is not given enough significance is our name because our names have meaning. So I would love to know, Andrea, before I even ask you this, my sister, who I talk about quite often, she passed away in 2012. Her name was Andrea. So that name holds a very special place in my heart. So regardless of what your name means, it is special to me.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear about your sister. I read about that, and so I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you.
But what an honor to share her name because she sounded like a beautiful lady.
She absolutely was. So I would love to know, Andrea, do you know what your name means?
I do. You know what? Depending on the language, it means different things. But to sum it up, I believe it means like brave.
Yep.
It's kind of like I think in Latin it means beautiful woman, and in some other languages it translates to more of a masculine form. But altogether, it just means a brave person. Is that what you? Okay.
That's what I got. So every time someone says your name, they are declaring to you that you are brave.
Wow. I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I'm a firm believer in what comes out of your mouth is really important. So that people are speaking blessings over me, and I didn't even know it.
Absolutely. Yep. Every single day, like probably 100 times a day, because I'm sure you hear your name over and over again.
Yes.
So I love to start at the beginning before I get to where you are presently. So tell us, Andrea, what did you want to be when you were a little girl?
Very similar to what I became. I wanted to be an actress, a singer, and somewhere along the lines, I believe a nurse and a doctor.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm doing all of those things now. I feel like I'm an actress. I really don't sing, but I do have a degree, a master's in music.
Awesome.
And as far as the nurse and the doctor, I feel like what I do as far as community work and as a commissioner, I'm just kind of maybe helping folks. There's probably a similarity, but how funny. It all kind of came together.
I love it. So tell us, okay, how did you get into acting? What was that path like for you?
Okay, that's a good question, McKinney. I grew up and was born in New York, and then we moved to California. On both coasts, I learned about the arts. My aunt was the dancer in Cyndi Lauper's video, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and she has these beautiful dreads. So she also danced with Alvin Ailey Theater. I had an uncle that danced, and my mom was a model. And she eventually became an advocate for entertainers, and she worked for top law firms globally. Wow. And so I was kind of, very well versed in entertainment. And then when we moved to California, my mom became quickly well versed in entertainment in California. So acting for me, and just wanting to be and to express myself in the arts in that way was kind of like natural. From my earliest memories, I remember being in fashion shows with my mom, and so I kind of grew into it. But I look at acting not as a way to be famous. To me, it's like a form of art, and it's like a form of self-expression.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So what was the intention when you began shifting creative paradigms, entertainment, and productions? Because I always say, whenever we start something, sometimes the intention behind it is different than how it turns out to be. So I would love to know, what was the intention when you first began?
I think that shifting creative paradigms was born out of a need to see social change. I experienced a very serious car accident that left me with some residual effects of, in the beginning, of being partially paralyzed and almost having like a stroke. So I had to really learn everything all over again. Now, mind you, right before the car accident, I was promoted to manage my department. And so my career was rising, and I worked for, at that point, a Fortune 500 media conglomerate. And as a Black woman, that was a huge deal. I was young, and so my life was just taking off. And then maybe a week later, after that promotion, I was rear-ended by a truck that was carrying construction materials.
Oh, wow.
And so I was actually hit twice. Yeah. And the truck wasn't huge, but it was heavy because of the construction materials. And so I had to quickly shift my paradigm. And I'll tell you a quick lead in is that this is the really interesting thing, McKinney. Right before the accident happened, maybe a year before that, I should say, I felt like I wasn't living in my full purpose. And a lot of times I feel like I can, like I'm kind of like an empathetic person. I'm like an empath. And I felt like sometimes I can even tell when I'm not on course, And I prayed something that I don't know why I prayed this, but I said, Lord, help me. I don't feel like I'm living in my full purpose. And I actually asked him, I said, I want to like help, kind of like angels help people, but I know I'm not an angel. I'm a human. So help me with this. So a year later, when this accident happened, I felt like maybe if I look past the obvious things that were taken from me, maybe I could find deeper meaning. Another interesting thing was that aside from, asking him that, right after I prayed that, I noticed in the year in between me asking him that in my car accident, a lot of things happened, a lot of adversity. But for some reason, I had this clear mindset after praying to him and kind of, submitting to him. And I realized that it was my vision or my lens of looking at this adversity. My mother had always said to me while growing up, adversity builds character. And that's also in scripture. And I kind of looked at, for the first time in my life, is some of the adversity that happened after I prayed that prayer necessary. And here's why. I'm not sure if you've ever, and I'm sure you have, gotten a facial. And when you leave, they'll tell you sometimes, sometimes you're thinking your skin is just going to become really clear, beautiful when you leave. But a lot of times the impurities come to the surface. The toxins come out. So your skin is kind of irritated at first before it takes on the new appearance. So when we pray and we ask for certain things, or when we make changes in our life, we expect everything to be so beautiful, And sometimes the toxins and the other stuff has to come out before God can do a new work in you and renew your spirit.
Yeah, it has to be uprooted. Yep.
Yeah. So while a lot of people were so concerned after my car accident about how I would take it, being that I had this promotion and now what, I'm a single mom. How am I going to take care of it? I was head of household. I was kind of calm, and I'm sure it was kind of strange for some people around me. Like, but that, that's why, because I kind of looked at this accident like maybe there's more to it, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't define myself I tried not to define myself so much by my appearance. So this was just a new challenge for me, and it did build character. It really did.
Wow. I mean, I'm an empath as well, so I'm feeling it like through my body right now, even as you're
Mm.
talking.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm sorry that you had to experience that. But you, like all of the other women that have been on the show, your pain has birthed your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's we go through these things, and it's great that you have that paradigm and you were able to have that perspective and to look at it as, there's has to be good that can come from this, because adversity happens to all of us. We all experience struggle, but it's about how we deal with it. So
Yes.
I love that you have been able to find the positive and,
Yes.
to use that for good.
And a lot of people want to kind of compare being disabled to something negative. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be like this toxic, positive person where I'm going to say that it's all happy, because there's a spectrum of disability. There's severe disabilities, and then there's invisible disabilities that are severe that we just can't see. But I will say this, it wasn't so much my disability or the car accident. It was sometimes the barriers that came along with that. So I
Mm-hmm.
quickly accepted, who I was in this new way that I had to move along the world. But it was like I was shocked that, we had certain laws in place and they weren't being adhered to. So again, and that was also, I felt like, oh, this is my purpose. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up
Mm-hmm.
with, like I told you, a mom who was in the legal field. And so she taught me to speak and to use my voice. And I noticed that sometimes when people go through certain things, and when you're in a particular group and you're trying to help mobilize, we sometimes criticize each other for not advocating a particular way.
Right.
But what I found out, yeah, is certain people advocate differently. They're extroverts, they may
Absolutely.
advocate this way, an introvert may advocate that way. And so I didn't want to criticize the other people. I said they probably really don't use their voice anymore because they didn't feel heard. And me being
Mm-hmm.
new, I'm going to come along and I'm probably going to, that didn't affect me. That didn't traumatize me. So I'm going to use my voice, but I'm not going to criticize those who didn't do that. Maybe that's my
Right.
purpose.
Right. I love that. I love that. Especially because, with everything that is happening in the world right now with, the health
Yes.
pandemic, the racial pandemic, all these things, everyone has an opinion on how people should advocate or how they should use their voice, not knowing that, like you said, people advocate differently. How you may be making a difference is very different from how someone else is making a difference. So it's important that we don't judge what we see on the surface. Like, you don't know what someone else is doing behind the scenes, whether it be them donating or, hands-on supporting, but they're not
There
talking
you
about
go.
it publicly. Like, there are so many
Mhm.
different ways out there. So thank you for sharing that.
That is so true. And what you said at the end is very important, because certain people are not comfortable with the spotlight. And I'm not saying that people that are looking for the spotlight. I'm just saying that's not some people's calling. That's just not their
Right.
calling. You know, they do
Absolutely.
they do work better. It's just like any other job. Some people do better in the office. They're extroverts. They feed off of the energy of other people sometimes, and some people do their best work behind the scenes. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you share with us some of the other adversities that you've had to experience to get to where you are today?
Yeah, let's see. I would say basically just, even though I was taught adversity leads to character, I will say that as a leader, and that's one of the callings that I feel that I'm supposed to help leaders with this. When you get into a leadership position, you're dealing with so many different types of people. You can't control things. And as a leader, sometimes you're used to having your day set up a certain way. And that's for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
When you get thrown off, your schedule or your routine, that's okay. It's great to have one. But when you're dealing with people, you don't know what's going to happen. So you have to learn how to pivot And I think sometimes I've been stuck there because being that I love people and I want to help them, if I don't see it long ago, like when at the beginning stages of me just developing and growing and seeking God's help. And we're all, by the way, my mother taught me this too. We're not stagnant individuals. We're all growing. We should grow.
Absolutely. What's not growing is dying.
Right. Exactly. Plants are growing. Everything's growing around us. But sometimes when we get 18, we're like, okay, I'm done. No, not really. So I want to make that point. I'm always growing. But there was a time of this huge growth period, and what would actually get me kind of stuck was kind of looking back at people and going, come with me, And sometimes they heard you planted that seed and you just need to move on. And in their own time, it could be 15 years, maybe God had you say something to them for that reason. Another thing that I struggled with that, held me back is sometimes I would see things and God's given me a gift and we all have gifts, but sometimes I would think it was obvious to other people and it wasn't. They would come back to me and they were like, you told me that, Andrea, And I learned again, not to get frustrated with that process. You tell someone once, and this could help with leaders too, and you move forward. It's not for you to decide when, they need to learn that lesson. I can imagine how many people were frustrated with me when I was growing and even now, like, when will she get it?
I hear you. So how do you stay motivated, especially right now, during the pandemic with, like I said, all the things that are happening in the world? How do you stay motivated?
Right now I'm in the process of writing a couple of books, and the first book is going to be like tidbits of what you're kind of asking me. And the second book is more like a memoir. But to go into that briefly is, I think that in order to kind of go back to the point we were talking about before, I believe that we should stay prayed up and we should stay as prepared as we can because we don't know how our day is going to go. Again, there's routines, but we can't be so, rigid. We want to be flexible because, we want to do that. So I say it's about how I start my day. That's important. And sometimes in the middle of my day, how I center, and how I end my day. And so for me, how I begin my day is kind of, a lot of people, they understand that they stretch and they yawn, and that, there's studies on that. Like that's kind of like a reflex, but that's so that we can actually get our muscles were like tight during the night, and we just stretch and we yawn and we're getting that oxygen in. And so our bodies know to do that. But sometimes I feel like we have to kind of put back into our soul, maybe what we lost from yesterday, or there was like a lot of stuff happening. So I like to wake up and just spend time with God. And, I don't try to tell people what faith or, what they believe in. But for me, I like to spend that quiet time with God. Sometimes just sit there and, mentally kind of like plan my day and making sure I'm not taking anything from yesterday into this beautiful new day that God has blessed me with, And I have a little bit of a routine, for me, I love music. And so I believe that certain music has lyrics that we talked about words and, what words you use. So some lyrics are just very healing and empowering. And that could be different. And I believe that self-care is so important. So what that looks like for me is different for someone else. But I think we should have some favorite things, because at night, toward the end of the evening, I start a self-care kind of plan. And it starts out sometimes with some quiet reading, trying to reconnect again to God, and reflecting, on the day, and, bath. I'll light a candle to kind of just get in a peaceful mood. My favorite juice, which is kind of like a pomegranate juice, something like that.
Awesome.
and it's just different for different people. But I think if we have these things on hand, if we're having an especially rough day, we may be able to do some of those things, and it may help with that process.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that the results are in the routine, and having morning routines and bedtime routines and all of those things have been so helpful
Mm-hmm.
to me in processing everything in life, like,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with all the adversities that come. I battle with an autoimmune disorder. So all like
Mm-hmm.
having, time to read and time to stretch and time to walk and time to reflect, like scheduling those things into my day has been life changing.
Yes. Yes. And again, like we said, you don't want to be so rigid that if something didn't happen, that it throws you too much, too off.
Right.
But at the same time, it's good to do this. Now, with the pandemic, as you mentioned, oh my goodness. I mean, not only that, but just, being a Black person right now, and we're taking in a lot of watching the news. And so what I do is I limit myself. Sometimes I have to kind of disconnect from everything,
Mm-hmm.
and not permanently, that may not be so healthy, but at least, I will disconnect sometimes from the news for a few hours instead of having it on all day, listening to repeat stories, being
Yep.
re-traumatized,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I don't think that's that healthy. And so, but we do need to know what's going on in the world. I'll sometimes disconnect from social media,
Mm-hmm.
and just sometimes we just need to be,
Yep. Yep.
just be still. That's how
Yeah.
we can hear God sometimes.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I was a while back, I was doing some reading and they were saying that watching the news for even up to 3 minutes can increase your chance of having a bad day by almost 30%. And
Really?
yeah, because of the news is all negativity. It's rare that you see good news on the news,
Right.
and
Right.
you're feeding that, into your system. That's what you're
Mm-hmm.
consuming. So it
Mm-hmm.
triggers stuff within the body, chemical reaction, and it can affect how you view life, how
Mm-hmm.
your day goes forward. So I stopped
Mm-hmm.
watching the news back in 2012 when my sister passed away because we spent 3 weeks sitting in ICU staring at the news on a TV. So I was traumatized. So I
Mm-hmm.
do not watch the news. I am one
Mm-hmm.
of those people.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
I
thank God we can get our news from different ways, and you
exactly.
got to think about that. I thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know just after 3 minutes. But you're looking at a story from someone else's lens, and
Hmm.
you know, not to get into all of that, but we don't know who's controlling that particular news station or whatever. So we have to be careful.
Absolutely. I've seen many times on social media where the same story that is covered on different media platforms, just the headline alone, you can see the bias and you can see,
Hmm.
the perspective
The
that it's coming
propaganda.
from.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Hmm.
super mindful of what I take in, what I consume,
Hmm.
in social
Hmm.
media as well. So
Yeah.
I guess what inspires you the most about what you do?
Helping people to live better lives through the adversity that I've been through.
Hmm.
And it makes it feel like, okay, if I went through that just to save, just to help one soul, it was worth it.
Right. Amen.
It
I
was
love it.
worth it.
I love it. So tell us one thing that most people don't know about you.
Most people don't know that my grandfather was Dominican, and my mother was raised by my was raised by him and my grandmother. And because I moved to California, I didn't get to spend that much time with him before he passed away. But I took it for granted. I remember him wanting to teach me about the culture, and I
Hmm.
remember him wanting to teach me Spanish. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." And then by the time I wanted to, unfortunately, he was gone. But he was such a
Wow.
bright light in my life, and one of a great, father figure for my mother.
Quick question. Have you had any coaches or mentors that have helped you along the way?
Many, many, not specific. people who call themselves coaches or mentors, but the time that you and I are spending right now, I look as like a period of growth and change. The questions that you've asked me are causing me to think deeper, And so I'd say once you start aligning yourself with God, it seems like a lot of those sorts of beautiful people come through your life.
Divine connections.
Mm-hmm.
Divine connections.
And lately, I mean, really, like the last month, it's like almost every other day, I'm getting someone like that in my life. And as I'm receiving their blessing of mentoring or helping me, I give it out. I push it right back out.
I love it. I love it. So I have a complete random question. So I came across this article on Reader's Digest that basically says your favorite type of shoe, they're able to tell your personality based on your favorite shoe. So I've pretty much asked everyone that's been on the show, and so far it's been on point. So let's see. But I would love to know, do you know what your favorite type of shoe is? Is it like a boot, a flip-flop, a running shoe, a walking shoe, a stiletto, I don't know, a loafer, pumps?
It's a cross between, and these are so different, but a boot, a really nice boot with a medium-sized heel, not so much stiletto type, and a wedge.
Okay. So let's see. High heel boot wearers take charge. In the event of a crisis, the person who loves wearing high-heeled boots will always be the one to take control of the situation. They're quick on their feet and able to make clear, rational decisions. This woman is exceptionally self-assured, so people around her feel instantly safe in her hands. The high-heeled boot is a take charge kind of person, and she loves being center stage and very assertive. Does that sound like you?
I love it. At times, yeah.
Okay, so let's see what the wedge says. The wedge woman, you are self-confident. So much like Kate Middleton, a die-hard wedge woman, you're someone who also knows how to carry yourself. You're graceful, assured, and always have a strong presence. There's something inviting and warm about you that draws people to your company. The wedge is willful, has a strong sense of self, and is very outgoing.
Wow, I would have never thought about that as a wedge, because I look at it like my comfort go-to,
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And by the way, because of my disability, I can't wear so many shoes like that anymore, but I am working to change that. So I have actually already worked to change that. So, but that's an interesting question. I love that. I love it.
So before we go to the final segment of the show, I want you to tell people where they can stay connected with you online.
Awesome. So my website is Andrea-Jennings.com, and you can stay connected with me on Instagram, and you can find me at Andrea J Walks in Faith.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect. So I will have the direct links for people to connect with you in the details section just below. And that way they don't have to search too far. They could just click and connect.
That's awesome. You've been a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you. So for the final segment of the show, I call it a walk in her wisdom. And I just share a couple of quick reflection questions, and you share the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. So, name a book that has changed or greatly impacted your life.
The Bible.
Amen. Okay. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say and why?
Don't let other people's opinions define who you are. Why? Because so many people are fooled into the media's perception of what beauty is, and it really affects people in really, bad ways. And so that's, something that I teach people behind the scenes and talk to them privately about.
I love it. Love it. What new belief, behavior, or habit has improved your life in the last 5 years?
The self-care routine at night, just adding that, it's really helped.
Awesome. And last but not least, what do you wish women would do more of?
Love themselves and not look for so much validation from other people.
Perfect. That was so beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much, Andrea, for sharing your gems and your journey with us. I truly appreciate you.
My pleasure. I'm honored again that that I can be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you for saying yes. And to all of you faith walkers out there, until next time, subscribe on all platforms and don't forget to rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We would love to hear your feedback on today's episode. And join the community of faith walkers and sign up for our weekly newsletter at awalkinmystilettos.com. And be sure to grab one of my personal development books available online everywhere. And if you could think I'm challenging you today. If you could think of 3 people that would receive value from Andrea's testimony, please share it with them. And feel free to screenshot this week's episode and you can tag us on Instagram. You can tag myself at The Real McKinney Smith, and you can tag Andrea at
Andrea J. Walks in Faith.
Amen. And continue to walk in greatness in your stilettos in a manner worthy of your calling.